Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Pardon me if I'm a little out of breath, but I've been kind of pushing it pretty hard today and realized I needed to record a video. So I just kind of abruptly stopped and ran down here and pushed record. I'm a little dirty and a little hot, so bear with me on the breathing and exhaustion. We need to talk about getting prepared, not just with food and the stuff that we talk about all the time. There are other things that you need to be doing to get yourself prepared, because like we've been talking in the last several days, between economic stuff, the supply chain breaking down. I forgot to mention, I think in the last video, that Suez Canal ship, the stuck ship, remember that way back months ago? It was just released the other day. That thing has been sitting there with all of its cargo untouched because of the investigation. So, a lot of people in the beginning are like, see, it only took a few days, a week to get unstuck. It wasn't that big a deal. That ship has been sitting all this time. But there's more. And there's more stuff happening all the time. And it's become very apparent to all of you that it's time that we really kind of hunker down, buckle down, get serious. And we talk about food and water and that kind of stuff all the time. And it's important. It's extremely important. But there are other things. There's other things that you need to consider and not forget about some of these. And so I'm going to mention some of them, run through them. I don't have all the perfect solutions for these problems or these things that you need to work on, but I do want you to at least kind of start thinking about them. Along with this topic, we've obviously economy stuff is being, all over the place. We saw yesterday 34,000% increase in, delinquent and hardship accounts here in the United States just over the past year, credit-wise. On and on and on. Supply chain and then the infrastructure stuff is just, which I believe that's very coordinated. I don't believe it's a coincidence. And just today, another one. In Houston, southwest Houston, Texas, a power station exploded, and they're experiencing major power outages all across the Houston area, especially the southern Houston area, while they're also dealing with a lot of rain, a lot of storms coming up in there, a lot of flooding from Corpus Christi all the way up into Houston area. So, it's just more stuff happening, right? The things that I wanted to talk about, though, are also very important. It should be part of your prepping plan. And one of them is just what to do with your own funds, your own finances, your own money. And I'm not a financial advisor, so don't think that I'm going to necessarily give you advice with your finances, and partly because everybody's finances are different. And I'm always a little leery on, just giving my opinions on this point, on this subject. So just remember what I say is my opinions. I would be really, I wouldn't be comfortable keeping a lot of money in the bank. Let's put it that way right now. There was a country here recently, and there was some run on the bank there. Venezuelan's dollar has just, it's completely worthless anymore. We're seeing things happen in other countries that's also leading up to a type of economic collapse, probably on a global level. Things seem to be somewhat normal here right now, but there are definitely signs of that happening. And so, how much do you leave in the bank and how much do you take out? Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know your particular situation. And I'm sure there are people out there that are more experts in this that's going to say, I would keep a percentage of this and blah, blah, blah. If you keep too much money in the bank, and understand, some of you are like myself, and sorry, I've been doing a lot of mowing and I can't see through my glasses, so I apologize if I stand here and clean my glasses while I talk. A lot of you are like us and many others. You don't have, boatloads of money in the bank, so it's not too big of a deal. But some of you do. Some of you have your retirement accounts, and maybe you've sold businesses and properties and things like that. Well, that's even worse, man. I just smeared the sweat all over them, so it made it worse. And so you have some money is set aside in the bank, and I understand that it's difficult because, what do? Do you stick it under your pillow, under your mattress? And then the reality is if the economy tanks and the dollar crashes, it doesn't matter whether you have it in the bank or you have it stuffed under your mattress, it's going to be worthless. I would, if it was me and I had, more than just a few $1,000s in the bank, I would try to turn that into some hard assets. Physical gold and silver, land, bullets, things that you need. If you're sitting on 10, 20 grand in a savings account, but yet your home, your property, yourself, your family isn't as prepared as they need to be, investing some of that money into those things might not be a bad idea. I understand it's not necessarily an investment that 30, 40 years from now you're going to retire on, but it's certainly something to think about. If it were me, I would put my money into places that are much more secure. I understand that the interest rates might be low, the returns might be low if you invest your money into more hard assets as opposed to stocks and just having money in the bank. But the kind of, you can see the storm clouds brewing on the horizon, and only a fool would stand there and watch those storm clouds get closer and closer and closer and do nothing to get ready and wait until they were right on top of them and decide, oh, I need to kind of batten down the hatches and get ready for this storm. So I would consider, if I were you, moving your money around, moving your investments around in a way that can help you ride out this storm. And maybe that's just the best way of putting it. Man, these glasses are awful. Sorry. I know this is... Other things to look at. Vehicles. You guys have heard me complain on here for the last few days about our problem with vehicles. We did buy a truck yesterday, an old one. Not old, but old, 2001. It's a 20-year-old truck in really, really good shape. Some of you are going to hate me for this, and some of you are going to love me, but I bought a Dodge. I've never owned a Dodge anything in my entire life, and I'm not a Dodge guy. But this thing was in super good shape, low mileage, had a brand new transmission, brand new front end, a lot of brand new stuff. Seats look like they just rolled off the showroom floor, in really, really good shape. Brand new tires, all kinds of stuff. And, it's got a good engine in it, so we decided to pull the plug on it and get that one. But that's not the point of the video. What's your vehicle situation? What's your transportation? Not just vehicles, transportation. It's very possible if things start collapsing and you've got lots of big loans out on things, they could come get them if you're not able to pay for them. If the dollar collapses, it's possible, if it's a lot of chaos, that's not going to happen, or that it may take a while to get to you. But it did happen during the Depression. Banks, that's how all these big banks came to be. Was really during the Depression. They went through and they bought up small banks. They bought up everybody's delinquent notes on their mortgages, their farms and everything, and they consolidated it all. And that was a massive wealth transfer during the Great Depression. So even during that level of hard times, they were still repossessing stuff. And so if your vehicle has significant loan on it, I don't know. There's also the theory that if it all collapses, they're going to be in this state of turmoil themselves, and they're not going to be able to go around and repo everyone's vehicle. But I would recommend having at least one vehicle that's paid for and that's just kind of old. Um, I've been seeing this from a lot of people. I actually had someone message me again last night, and they work for some type of, and I can't remember exactly, they work for some type of manufacturing, or maybe it's not manufacturing. I think they do shipping for like auto parts and stuff. And they said that the auto parts, they're backed up. They don't have the parts for them. A lot of new parts not coming in. And there's a lot of shortages and a lot of slowdown and stuff. You know, if you have a newer vehicle that's impossible for the average Joe to work on and has to have all these new parts, and that's your only thing to depend on, that's probably not the best prepper plan. It may be a great vehicle. You may have bought some brand new off-road tricked out vehicle. It looks like some, you know, mud and whatever kind of stuff, and that's fine if that's what you want. But if things get really tough, are you going to be able to do repairs on it yourself? Or are you going to be able to find the parts for it yourself? And that's something to really think about. There's also, and I'll get into it later, the whole EMP thing with vehicles. Mostly I want to focus on repairs and parts. I would suggest having an old vehicle that can get around. You know, this truck that we got, it's old enough. And I'm still looking for a good, like a 1980s or something like that, in good shape, that can just be the beater and that kind of stuff. But having something that you can work on, this thing, it's much easier to work on. There's very little of the computers and all that kind of stuff on it. And if you get something even older, it's much easier to work on. A new vehicle is almost impossible for just an average person to work on it with average tools that you would have at home. You have to have a lot of specialty tools anymore to work on these new vehicles. And then the parts are extremely high, and because they're a new vehicle, they're being newly manufactured. You can't easily go to a salvage yard. You know, around here in the Ozarks, there's salvage yards everywhere. And you buy some old, you know, 90s model Chevy pickup, may look like it's just falling apart, but it doesn't take too much to get it running. And there's salvage yards everywhere that's full of them, full of these 90s models. You know, I always said that my opinion, one of the best kind of apocalyptic engines for a vehicle is probably the Chevy 350, because I don't know that any engine in the United States has been produced more than that Chevy 350. I'm not exactly sure on that, but I'd say if it's not number one, it's pretty close. And you can find parts for Chevy 350s everywhere. It's that kind of stuff. But other transportation, you know, bicycles. I saw someone one time, it was kind of funny. They said, what is it about these apocalyptic movies that there's no bicycles? You know, think about it. These apocalyptic movies, you know, after some nuclear fallout happens, and you know, you'll always see these people walking for miles. You know, the whole video is them walking on this road. Are there no bicycles around anymore? Having a few bicycles around are a pretty good idea. Dirt bikes, good idea. If you have the land and the time and the money, because they do require that. Horses, or honestly, and some of you might yell at me for this, for actual usage, mules are really good for that. If you're wanting something to pull a cart around, pull a wagon, mules are really good. I know they're not as cool as horses, but they really do the job. And here in Missouri, the type of vegetation that we have and terrain that we have, mules are actually probably a little bit better than a horse. A little stubborn, but a good animal to have for that purpose. So think about your transportation. Not just from this, you know, Mad Max apocalypse that the end is near, but just the fact that things are going to get expensive. Things are going to get hard to come by. And, you know, your 3 or 4 year old Ford or Chevy pickup, it's going to be really difficult for you to work on unless you're a master mechanic and have a lot of tools. And are you going to be able to find parts for it readily? Or even if the parts are still being manufactured, they could easily be 6 months, 9 months to a year on back order. And you can't have parts for everything, but if you have an old truck, say again, a 90s Ford or Chevy or something like that, a lot of guys I know, they have parts trucks. You know, they find one online that maybe the motor's blown or it's been wrecked or something, but there's a lot of good stuff on it, and they buy it and they park it in their back field, and that's where they take parts off of it to fix the one that they have that runs. This is the kind of stuff we have to start thinking about. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, the old hillbillies did. We live, again, in a very comfortable modern society, and people don't think of that anymore. You know, the average person, they drive a vehicle 3 or 4 years and they trade it in for another brand new one, and they just keep having brand new vehicles. That's the thing now. When I was a kid, man, all kinds of people drove old vehicles. Nowadays, the only old vehicles you really see anymore are classics that are really kept up. You don't see a lot of just old vehicles that people are driving. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we won't go into it. But having adequate transportation is going to be important. Transportation that's reliable, that you can work on, and that you can get parts for. Because even if this is just a kind of a hyperinflation or a really bad depression that lasts a few years and not the apocalypse, it could still make it very difficult to get adequate transportation because of supplies and getting someone to work on it and the lack of funds and everything. As far as I mentioned EMP, I don't really want to go into that too much in this video. Typically, the older the vehicle, the safer it is against EMP. A lot of these new vehicles, most of the new vehicles, have some type of computer in them, and the EMP can fry them and, of course, make them not work. There are things that you can do to work around that. Again, I'm not going to go into that in this video, but typically something that was made before, say, 1975, 1977 is probably going to be EMP proof. So if you could pick up something like that, it would solve a lot of problems. There are other things that we have to focus on too. Your plans for where you're going to reside. How have you worked that out? If you live in the city, in the suburbs, or if you live in an apartment, what are your long-term plans there for survival? Are you going to try to grow food there? What's your plans for water and water storage? What's your plans for security? Do you have this plan of trading, bartering with local people within the town that you live in? Or is your plan bugging out? Is your plan getting out of the city? And the question is when do you get out of the city? Because unless I'm really wrong, I don't think we're going to see this be a big explosion of apocalypse. I think we're going to continually see this slow progression. And you know what happens when you have a slow progression of something? It cooks you in the skillet, kind of like the frog. And so for all these people that are like, yeah, I've got a bug out plan, and when things get really bad, I'm going to bug out. Well, at what point do you call it really bad? Because in a lot of places, it's really bad right now. So what is your real plan for saying, okay, this is the line. Once it's crossed, we're leaving. If bugging out is your plan, if you plan on doing that, consider bugging out early. Consider moving to your property. If you're able to actually move there to buy property, or if you already have property that you're going to utilize as a bug out. And I understand some people are just going to hopscotch through, abandoned properties and state parks and federal forests and stuff. But if you have property and your plan is to bug out there, strongly revisit the idea of moving there early or soon, and going ahead and setting up shop if you're at all possible and able to do that. Because you will be much more prepared, you will be much stronger in your defenses, in your setup, if you can get there ahead of time, and the sooner the better, and go ahead and start developing your homestead instead of waiting until you see the mushroom cloud off in the distance and you're running out the back door with your BOB and heading to your BOV or your BOL in your BOV. So I know it's silly prepper lingo. Because bugging out is dangerous. It just flat out is. There's never any guarantee, no matter how well you plan it, no matter how well you train and practice your bug out plan. There will be no guarantee whatsoever that it will go smoothly and happen without any flaws, without any problems. Whereas if you're already on the property, you're so many steps ahead. You don't have to worry about all the dangers of getting there because you're already there. And I know that's not possible, I guess, for everyone, but I would certainly consider thinking about it. All right, folks, this video went a little long. I am sorry for that, but these are some things, and there are others, of course. I'm sure some of you will drop comments in the down below about other things that people need to be thinking about, working on, actively coming up with a plan, because things are starting to get a little crazy and a little hairy, and I don't know how much longer we have of normalcy. All right, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.